What do Falcons do? Rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, a show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia sports, and in general, sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, lifelong sports fan, and the Golden Hard Dog, coming back to you today with what should be the preview video for this week, Carolina versus the Falcons. But instead, I don't really want to talk about that game. If the Falcons lose that game, then the season's over. So I just got to say, we got to win this game. We need to win this game. If we do not win, season's over. And what I'm talking about today becomes incredibly more important. So let's jump right into it. Today, this is going to be a little bit of an indictment on Arthur Smith. There's been a report that's come out from some ESPN analysts who have an ear to the team that more or less have said that no matter what happens this season, Arthur Smith is not on the hot seat in Atlanta. I have a problem with this. First off, the first 2 years of his career, I will say are a mulligan. You know, we had really bad contracts. We were trying to rebuild through the draft. We didn't take players that I thought we should take, but we still were trying to build through the draft. So I'm going to give him a little bit of leeway because we also ended up last year with like $70 million in dead cap from trading away Matt Ryan and then also from trading away Julio Jones. Again, those were big moves that we've made in the last couple of years, and I do think, given that we did receive some draft capital back from them, it was a relatively okay move because neither player returned to any semblance of form after they were traded away. So I don't necessarily have a major problem with the moves overall in retrospect. Julio Jones, I feel bad that he kind of gave up on the team, and I feel bad that the Falcons faithful who enjoyed numerous seasons with him as our face of the franchise who have turned their back on him because he got frustrated with the coaching staff and got frustrated with the front office. I don't blame him for that because as a Falcons fan, I am frustrated with those same people as well. Matt Ryan, say what you will about him. He was the most successful most successful quarterback in Falcons franchise history. Took us as close to winning a Super Bowl as anyone ever has. Had a coaching staff behind him that was elite. If you go back and look at all the guys who ended up going on to get their own coaching gigs, you had guys like Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan on that coaching staff, Dan Quinn, who is still a very good defensive coordinator. So we had a lot of things going for us then. But Arthur Smith came into a bad situation, and I acknowledge that wholeheartedly, and I basically said, he has a 3-year plan. Let's let him have the 3 years. There's not a lot he can do in years 1 and 2 other than try and build for the future. Now, our defense was atrocious for the first 2 years of his career with the Falcons, and I said the entire time that we need to be building through the draft to get a solid defense because that is where we were struggling the most. And what did we do in these drafts? Let's go back to 2021 and look real quick. So 2021 draft, you have, that's the one where Trevor Lawrence went number 1 overall. Zach Wilson ended up being a bust at number 2, and Trey Lance ended up being a bust at number 3, though it really has not impacted the 49ers in a negative way. And the Falcons were picking at 4 overall after going 4-12 the year prior. So a really bad season, which led to Dan Quinn getting fired and led to Arthur Smith coming in as the head coach. And the talent around this position, I want to be very clear. You have Kyle Pitts, who ended up with a very good rookie season, 1,000-yard campaign, with Matt Ryan throwing him the ball. A guy who, say what you will about him, knows how to use his weapons. He made Julio Jones a legend. He made Roddy White look good. He made guys like Taylor Gabriel look good. He made pretty much anybody, Tony Gonzalez for a season, made a lot of different players look phenomenal. And again, would utilize his weapons to a high degree and a high percentage. And that's a great thing with Matt Ryan. We have not had that for the last couple of years. But you get to the Falcons picking 4th overall, and you have Kyle Pitts available. Other players available here. And this is the draft that I go back to and say, this is the indictment on the Falcons. You have Kyle Pitts that we took, but we had guys immediately after. Jamar Chase, Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not saying we needed him then because we still had Calvin Ridley at the time, but you don't know how to use Calvin Ridley, so guess what? He wants to say F off and let me go and do what I want to do and get out of here. Now, he had his gambling thing in the middle of it, which I still think is stupid, but again, he ended up going to the Jaguars, and hopefully through that trade we'll actually get some value off of him this year. But he's had a relatively decent year with them, but he wasn't being utilized correctly and ended up saying, hey, I don't want to play for this coach anymore. But you had Jamar Chase, you had Jalen Waddle, who went immediately after him, Penei Sewell, who has been a very good Pro Bowl tackle. You have J.C. Horn, who, again, I would say the Carolina Panthers screwed up on in light of guys like Patrick Surtain, who went right after that, but still a very good corner when he can stay healthy. You have Patrick Surtain, you have Devonta Smith, Justin Fields, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater, Elijah Vera Tucker. Those are the guys that went immediately after Kyle Pitts in the draft, and you mean to tell me that one of those guys could not have been a foundational piece in the trenches or in the secondary where we were having a really bad time on defense, or again, just to bring in some help and stretch the field a little bit on offense. Kyle Pitts was supposed to be that, but it is very clear, and this is one of my indictments, Arthur Smith cannot use Kyle Pitts with the quarterback staff he has. He does not know how to use that weapon. Kyle Pitts is not a blocker. He is virtually a receiver, and he doesn't know how to use him. It drives me nuts. So again, that's the first draft. And let's go around and see what else we picked that draft. We took Richie Grant, who has been pretty bad overall. UCF legend Richie Grant has not been particularly good. I don't know what we could have gotten there that would have made a lot of sense. There's not a lot of Pro Bowl caliber guys, but we passed up on like center Creed Humphrey, who went later in the second round. We took Jalen Mayfield, complete and total bust, and some of this falls back on Fontenot as well, but complete total bust, not even on the team anymore. We took Darren Hall, not on the team anymore. We took Drew Dahlman, who thank God has been a pretty decent center since he started, but didn't look good for a couple of years. Taquan Graham, who has not looked particularly good, played admirably this past week, but had one of our key moments last season losing to the Chargers with the fumble recovery and then subsequent fumble by Taquan Graham in the same play. And then you have guys like Ogundeji, who's not on the team anymore, Avery Williams, chronically hurt, and Frank Darby, who was cut. So basically, nobody from the 2021 draft is still on the team, and the coach has some say in who's coming in. 2022 draft, let's jump right into this one, where the Falcons went on the first of two so far seasons, going 7-10 under Arthur Smith. We managed to take Drake London there with that pick. And this is where I started making videos, and I was in Atlantic City playing poker at the Borgata, and I was watching this unfold on TV, and I remember, and you can go back and watch my first video. I basically cursed and said, crap, why do we do that? Other guys that went right there, Charles Cross, been a solid tackle for his team. Garrett Wilson, Rookie of the Year last year. Chris Olave, amazing wide receiver. Jamison Williams, when he's not hurt, has been very good. Jordan frickin' Davis, when he can stay on the field, is a wrecking ball up the middle for the Philadelphia Eagles. Baltimore Ravens selected Kyle Hamilton right after that, who was projected to be a top 5 pick at one point. He's been a solid safety for him. Kenyon Green's been an okay guard for the Texans so far, coming alive this year. Jahan Dotson, I don't think he should have been taken there. Zion Johnson, not a bad guard. There were other guys, and point I'm making here, there were other guys that could have really filled out the trenches or could have filled out key positions, but instead we took a luxury pick on a wide receiver. Now, again, I'm very glad that we have him now. I'm very, very glad that we have London, because otherwise we would have like nothing at wide receiver. But there were other guys in this draft. I think you could have taken George Pickens in the second round because he was still there, and it would have made sense. Now, a guy that I am glad has come alive a little bit the last couple of weeks, but he's just got to learn to wrap up. You have Arnold Ebiketie, who we took in the second round after trading up. We have Troy Anderson, this is a lost season for him. I don't know what's going to happen there, but we did find Nate Landman as a result, so I'm not overly sad about it. We took Desmond Ridder in this draft, which that experiment has obviously not been the greatest in the world. Desmond's a backup. I don't think he's really a starting caliber quarterback. D'Angelo Malone, third round. We don't use him. Don't know how to use him. And then we didn't have a fourth round pick. Fifth round, we took Tyler Algier, who has been like one of the bright spots. And then we have Justin Schaefer sitting on the practice squad in the sixth round. And then, again, John Fitzpatrick also in the sixth round, really not there's nothing I can say about him that's particularly good. We did get Timmy Horn later on at nose tackle, who ended up playing for us for a little while. But again, kind of a lost draft. Not really a great class. And this past year, so far, not too bad. But again, I wonder what could have been. We took Bijan Robinson, number 8 overall, and Jalen Carter, who at one point before kind of getting hurt was playing like defensive rookie of the year, has looked great for the Philadelphia Eagles. You have Darnell Wright and Peter Skoronski, who have been solid line pieces, and we did elect to bring Caleb McGarry back, who's had a up and down season, good run blocker, god-awful pass blocker. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, Lucas Van Ness, Broderick Jones, Will McDonald, Emmanuel Forbes, not particularly good. Christian Gonzalez went all the way at 17. We've been trying to find our second corner for a while since A.J. Terrell, and I do think we've got that in the duo of Clark Phillips and Okudah, but I would much rather have Christian Gonzalez than either of those guys at this point. So again, we passed up on talent like that. Kalijah Cansey got a sack on us from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past week. So again, I don't know that we have done the best in terms of drafting, and I think that really is part of the problem here. The other part of the problem is play calling. We have gone 7-10, 7-10, and now we are 6-7 in what should be the easiest season that we have had so far as Falcons fans. We are playing the AFC South. We are playing the NFC North at a time when they are their weakest. We have the weakest overall division, and we can't find a way to stay above 500. We are absolutely snatching defeat from the jaws of victory in most games that we go into, and while some of that falls on Ridder because he is a turnover machine, which is what I said he cannot be at the beginning of the year, some of that's on Ridder. Some of that, though, is on the play calling. And I just want to say this. Pat McAfee, I really started this entire thing because I wanted to talk about something that happened on the Pat McAfee show a couple weeks ago. I wrote it out. I'm going to read what Pat McAfee said. Let's talk about Bijan's relationship. Obviously, it's something that has been speculated upon all season. Last week, he is getting wet in the end zone multiple times. What have you seen from him? The development of his rookie season. Where do you think we can go with Bijan? Arthur Smith deflects the damn question by saying, well, we got a lot of good offensive players. I thought he played pretty well last week. I thought he played well. I thought the offensive line played really well last week. It's probably their best game, and all three of our runners got involved. We got a lot of really good weapons. I mean, that's encouraging thing as we are hopefully hitting our stride going into December. He could not have been set up for a better T-ball question, and he just absolutely whiffed and refused to talk about the special player that is Bijan Robinson, that they spent the number 8 overall draft pick on this past season. What are we doing? And that's what I'm saying. What are we doing here? Arthur Smith, that is the problem with Arthur Smith's mentality. And it's very clear there. He refuses to speak well about his special players. He sees from that statement, what I read from it is that he sees every single player as the exact same player. They are all just cogs in the wheel of his ridiculous offense that doesn't work. And he should be able to throw Bijan in there. He should be able to throw Tyler in there, Cordell in there, and they should all be able to do more or less the same thing. Now, I know he probably doesn't actually think that, but he just refuses to talk about the special talent. And I think that carries out in the percentages of what's been given to him. So talking about overall percentages in all of our rush plays this year, Bijan has only gotten the ball 41% of the time. That is absolutely insane to me. Of all rush plays, Bijan, 41% of the time. In my mind, he should be getting the ball 55, 60+% of the time if we are running the ball. Tyler Algier, 37% of all rushing plays go into him. So they have been incredibly freaking close in terms of rushing percentages here. Desmond Ridder, some of these are forced out of the pocket plays. They're not designed runs, but he's had 11% of the runs. And Patterson, he's been hurt for a good bit of the season. So he only has 8% of the carries. But my ideal situation would be 30-plus carries a game. Bijan Robinson getting about 15 to 18 of those. Tyler Algier getting somewhere between 8 and 12. And then Patterson picking up, somewhere between 4 and 7 carries, with Ridder getting sprinkled in there if he's having to scramble. I don't really like any designed runs for Ridder, but I think he has the scramble ability, and that's about it. So rush percentage, Bijan Robinson is criminally underutilized. We haven't started using him in the red zone. Didn't see the red zone until week 10. So the first 9 weeks of the season, he doesn't touch the red zone. Kyle Pitts hasn't been targeted in the red zone but like 1 or 2 times the entire year. Going on the target side of target share, you have Drake London, who, unsurprisingly, 21.4%. I would say that is a little bit surprising that he's not commanding like 30% of the targets. Pitts, I was very surprised, commands 18.9%, but a lot of his have been bad throws. He was kind of hurt at the beginning of the season. He's only had 44 catches this year, but he's only got 18.9%. So between your two best receivers, it's under 40% total for those two, which just drives me nuts. Or right at 40%. Under, right at, doesn't matter. The next best is Bijan Robinson at 15.6%, and then you got Jonnu Smith at 14.1%, but Jonnu Smith is more efficient with his targets overall, having nearly the same amount of receptions as Kyle Pitts. But again, everybody after that, there's a huge drop-off in targets when we get past that point, but I just am thinking, this is a very clear indication. If you've got guys like, you've got 15 plus targets sometimes to Devontae Adams and some of these really special playmakers. Drake London having a 10 reception, 172-yard game, having to go out and make some spectacular catches this past week because Ritter is not necessarily the most accurate guy. Great in the intermediate zone. He has so much pop and zip on the ball. Love to see those 15-yard receptions out of him. But when he tries to throw it down 35 yards, I don't know who's coming up with that ball. When he tries to throw it short, obviously we don't know what's going to happen because he's throwing so hard that he either misses or he's just not hitting guys where he needs to. So again, I don't know how much of it falls on Ritter, but I know that the overall woes of this team start at the head coaching position. And the fact that we are going to potentially give him a 4th season after 3 straight losing ones where he said coming into this one that, hey, we're on a 3-year plan. I have a major problem with that. And just thinking about this for next year, Atlanta Falcons' schedule, we already kind of know who we're going to be playing. We know at least 14 teams that we're going to be playing next year. We are going to be playing the AFC West, meaning we have to frickin' play Kansas City, the Chargers. We have to play the Broncos in Denver. We have to play the Raiders in Las Vegas. We have to play the NFC East, meaning we play the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. We get the Dallas Cowboys in Atlanta. We get the Giants, who are probably going to be a little better next year, and we get the Commies. Again, the Commies have beat us 2 times in a row, so I really can't say that we're going to beat that team. So we have tough matchups. Then we have our own 6 divisional games, and right now, if you ended the season, I would have to go back and look at this. But let's see here, NFL standings. Let's just real quick take a peek at this sucker. Right now, if we were to talk about our opponents for next year, we would be playing the Rams if the season ended today. Don't know if that would be in LA or home. We would be playing the Vikings again next year if the season ended today. That could just as easily be the Packers. The other NFC West game could end up being the Seahawks. Don't know on that one. But again, it drives me nuts that that's what would be happening. And then we still have an AFC North team that we would have to play, and I think all of those teams are better than us. But in the AFC North, we would be playing the number 2 team in that division, and that right now would be the Browns, which they will have Deshaun Watson back next year at this time. It could just as easily be the Steelers or Bengals by the end of the year. So we're going to play a team that we're probably going to get outclassed by next year. So all of that to say, we're not going to have a good chance at a winning season next year. This was the year. We have the easiest schedule on paper, and in year 3 of a 3-year plan by Arthur Smith, we are just as bad as we were the first 2, and I would say it's worse because he refuses to A, talk about his talent, and B, use his talent. Is some of this falling back on the draft and Terry Fontenot and having a really bad 2021 first draft, a middling 2022, and so far an okay 2023? Yes, we didn't do well in Terry Fontenot's first draft. I fully admit to that. And again, I think he screwed up royally by taking Kyle Pitts because we have a coach that doesn't know how to use him, that wants to use him in blocking schemes. Kyle Pitts is not a blocker. That is obvious. And again, all of this to say, this is a long video. This is basically a rambling essay on why Arthur Smith needs to be let go at the end of this year. He is not going to take us to the Super Bowl. Next year is going to be a harder schedule, and I look for us to maybe get 8 wins the way we played this year. I don't know how anybody can look at what we've got coming up and say, hey, we're going to win a bunch of games next year. We would need a quarterback change, which certainly can happen in the draft. Justin Fields, I'm not overly opposed to that as long as the price is right. I would not give up multiple day 2 or any day 1 picks to make that happen. Maybe 1 day 2 and 1 day 3 pick maximum. That would be the most I would pay for him. Otherwise, I'm looking in free agency at somebody like Kirk Cousins, who would be a huge upgrade on what we have now. Or I'm looking to the draft, which this quarterback class seems to have like 4 or 5 guys that potentially could be the guy. And again, if we don't win the division, we're going to be poised for a top 10 draft pick. Makes it a lot easier to draft or to trade up into the pick that we're trying to get to. Whole lot easier to do that than to try and move up from 19th, which is where we probably would be picking from if we win the division. Guys, I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts on Arthur Smith. I have given him a long rope over the last few years, to a lot of leeway just to do what he needed to do, but that's over. We're in year 3 of a 3-year plan, and the plan is awful. The plan is garbage. The plan does not look good, and I don't see that plan getting better no matter what next year. And just real quick, again, a lot of y'all are wondering, FBS schedules, go check that out. We do know who we're playing, with the exception of 2 NFC teams and 1 AFC team. We know that through about 2027, I believe. And just to give you a heads up, it doesn't get any easier in 2025. 2025 is going to be a lot tougher, or not a lot tougher, but it's going to be very, very similar. 2025, we are playing, I know we're playing the AFC East, meaning we're going to have to play the Bills. And I believe I want to say we play the NFC West in that year as well. So again, going to play teams like the 49ers and all that all over again. So I don't have a lot more to say. That's all I got for you. Thank you for watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you really want to see Arthur Smith gone, let me know down in the comments below. If you don't think any of this is his fault, if you think he's a solid coach, I want to hear about that too. I disagree with you fundamentally at this point, but I do want to hear about it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching through this. And as always, rise up.